form of the United Nations for World Health Activity, but due to the shortcomings of limited national activities, such a general mass welfare program for the whole world is not practically possible. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is so nice that it can render the highest benefit to the entire human race. Everyone can be attracted by this movement and everyone can feel the result. Therefore, Rupa Goswami and other learned scholars agree that a broad propaganda program for the Krishna conscious movement of devotional service all over the world is the highest humanitarian welfare activity. How the Krishna consciousness movement can attract the attention of the whole world and how each and every man can feel pleasure in this Krishna consciousness is stated in the Padma Prana as follows. A person who is engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is to be understood to be doing the best service to the whole world and to be pleasing everyone in the world. In addition to human society, he is pleasing even the trees and animals because they also become attracted by such a movement. A practical example of this was shown by Lord Chaitanya when he was travelling through the forest of Jharkhand in central India for spreading his Sankirtan movement. The tigers, the elephants, the deer, and all the other wild animals joined him and were participating in their own ways by dancing and chanting Hare Krishna. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I was told the verse is, so it's Canto 7, Chapter 6, Prahlad instructions to morning schoolmates. Okay, text number 4. Okay. Tat prayaso na kartavyo, tat prayaso na kartavyo, yata ayur vyaya param, yata ayur vyaya param, na tata vindate kshemam, na tata vindate kshemam, Mukunda Charanambujam, Mukunda Charanambujam, Tat Prayaso Kartavyo, Yata Ayurvaya Param, Natata Vindate Kshemam, Mukunda Charanambujam, Tat Prayaso Kartavyo, Yata Ayurvaya Param, Natata Vindate Kshemam, Mukunda Charanambujam, Tat Prayasuna Kartavyo, Yata Ayurvaya Param, Natata Vindate Kshemam, Mukunda Charanambujam. Chant. Yata Ayurvaya Param, Natata Vindate Kshemam, Mukunda Charanambujam, Tat Prayason Kartavyo, Yatur Ayurvaya Param, Natata Vindate Kshemam, Mukunda Charanambujam. Tat, for that, sense gratification and economic development. Prayasa, endeavor. Na, not. Kartavya, to be done. Yata, from which Ayu, Vyaya, waste of the duration of life. Param, only or ultimately. Na, nor. Tata, in that way. Vindate, enjoys. Kshemam, the ultimate goal of life. Mukunda, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can deliver one from the material clutches. Charana Ambujam, the lotus feet. Translation. Endeavours merely for sense gratification or material happiness through economic development are not to be performed, for the result only in a loss of time and energy with no actual profit. If one's endeavours are directed toward Krishna consciousness, one can surely attain the spiritual platform of self-realization. There is no such benefit from engaging oneself in economic development. Please repeat. Endeavours merely for sense gratification or material happiness through economic development are not to be performed, for they result only in loss of time and energy, with no actual profit. If one's endeavours are directed toward Krishna consciousness, one can surely attain the spiritual platform of self-realization. There is no such benefit from engaging oneself in economic development. Purport. We see materialistic persons busily engaged in economic development all day and all night, trying to increase the material opulence. But even if we suppose that they get some benefit from such endeavours, that does not solve the real problems of their lives, nor do they know what the real problem of life is. This is due to a lack of spiritual education. Especially in the present age, every man is in darkness in the bodily conception of life, not knowing anything of the spirit soul and its needs. Misguided by the blind leaders of society, people consider the body to be everything, and they are engaged in trying to keep the body materially comfortable. Such a civilization is condemned because it does not lead humanity toward knowing the real goal of life. People are simply wasting time and the valuable gift of the human form, because a human being who does not cultivate spiritual life but dies, like the cats and dogs, is degraded in his next life. From human life, such a person is put into the cycle of continuous birth and death. Thus, one loses the true benefit of human life, which is to become Krishna conscious and solve life's problems. Om Gyan Tamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurmalitam Yana Tasma Shigurve Namaha Vikam Karoti Vachakam Pandam Lagate Garam Yatkripatamam Bande Shigaram Janitaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Endeavours merely for sense gratification or material happiness through economic development are not to be performed, for they result only in a loss of time and energy with no actual profit. If one's endeavours are directed toward Krishna consciousness, one can surely attain spiritual platform of self-realization. There is no such benefit from engaging oneself in economic development. It's amazing, actually. What profiteth man if he gains all that he loses eternal soul? Even if he gain the whole world, then there's not spiritual terms in profit. And the people who spend so much time practically from the day they're born, like we talked about that he sometimes the parents make sure that when they have them, they're regular catching area so that when the kids get to a certain age, they can go to school. And because the planning that they can. There's no sound coming through. Could be this is low. It's quite quiet, isn't it? So the parents trying to think of what's best for them, then they engage in so many activities to support their families, so their families can also then get a good education, and then they will also have a good life of sense gratification, and then they pass it on. This is called chewing the chew. Because they're not actually getting what the human life is meant to offer. And Prabhupada says, even if we do get some benefit from such endeavours, it doesn't solve the real problems of life, nor do the real problems of life are. So people think the problems of life are to get enough money. Generally, there's a Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, and usually in Kali Yuga, many people are so lazy they're not even interested in Artha, they just want Kama. They don't even want to be bothered with economic development. If I can get something for nothing, then let me do that. Let me just sue somebody and get a big windfall. Or let me just go on the social security. To the extent that people go to get on the social security, it's actually disgraceful. You know, I remember one person tell me they knew this lady. Can you believe it? She was making out. I think she'd never worked a day in her life, and she was expert at avoiding getting a job and getting benefits. And she had some interview where she had to prove that she wasn't fit for a job, and she actually just passed excrement in her clothes, went into the interview, and then that made the people convinced that she was fit for a job. So we just see the extent that people go, they have no shame, no integrity, no honour for themselves, they don't even respect themselves that much, and then they laugh about it later. But the thing is, you don't get something for nothing in the material world, because if you take, you have to give it back. They're indebted. So this is also Shastra. 3 things must be extinguished immediately. Does anybody know any of those? Okay, there's 3 devotees here, so you get one each. Fire. Jayananda, do you know any one of the 3? 3 things that must be extinguished immediately. There's fire. That's an easy one.
Lust.
No, that can come under fire. Disease and debt. These are the fire, disease, and debt. You may have heard it before. So if you're in debt and if you don't get rid of it, then it becomes bigger and bigger, and then sometimes people take another loan to pay for the loans they've already had. So instead of having 4 or 5 loans, they have one big loan. And then they think, oh, now problems are solved, but they're still paying. It's called the never never, getting on the never never, where they never finish paying for something. And unfortunately, people in a situation sometimes where they're so poor that they can't even buy. They're under so much pressure to buy things for their family to keep up with the times, and they might not have the income, so they go on the never never, or they getting things on loan. But it's never satisfying, because it's always playing in the back of your mind. I remember first time when I was young, I took out a purchase on a guitar amp. I think it was a guitar amp. And I had to pay £10 a week for like 11 weeks or something, but it was always in my mind that I was looking forward to the day when I could pay it off, because once it was paid off, then it wasn't in my mind any longer. And disease, if you don't deal with disease, then one thing can lead to another. It's just like in a car. If you've got a puncture and you fix it and you just drive on the flat, then the wheel's going to get damaged. And if the wheel gets damaged, the suspension's damaged. and then if the suspension gets damaged, the steering gets damaged, and then you have an accident. So, from a nail in the tire to anything, or a house, if you don't fix the gutter, the water comes into the house, it creates so much damage. And then, so this is, the material world is continually decaying. The endeavour is there to create something, but as soon as something's new, as soon as it's off the production line, it starts to deteriorate. You take, for example, a car, it's a certain price in the showroom. As soon as someone drives it, if they go down the road and turn around the roundabout and come back and say, I don't want it any longer, they've lost about 20% of its value already. So this is the material world, it's such a value is placed on things. So they don't know what the problems of life are, which are birth, death, old age, disease, and they don't know what the true values of life are. And let's go back to Thakur says that objects of false prestige are falsely prestigious. We place some some importance on things. Also, in the Bhagavatam, it mentions that this material world is a place of names. So we give something a name, it gives it some kind of identity, some kind of importance. But I remember there was one spiritual master he was a sannyasi, guru, GBC. He went on the street to do books, and he says, "You're on the street, in ISKCON, you're a big man, sannyasi, guru, GBC, but you're on the street, you're nobody. You're just, some odd-looking guy in a pink dress with a stick, a big pole." People thinking, what's this interesting guy? But some people might be curious. Some people might think you're not. You don't mean anything to them. So therefore, in Krishna consciousness, then the whole thing's all about service. Even those who are gurus, sannyasi, GBC, TP, head pujari, sanktan leader, head of the ashram, it's all just services. It's not position. If someone's looking for position, then it's the wrong motivation, and they won't get what we're looking for. So we have to be careful not to bring material aspirations into spiritual life. So they don't know what the real problem of life is, and this is due to a lack of spiritual education. So there are many subjects covered in the classrooms, in the schools, colleges, universities, but they don't have even one, even if they had one session a week, which everybody had to learn, was spiritual education. Simply like, okay, you're not the body, so point to your nose, right? Point to your ear, point to your knee, point to you. No, that's your body, no, that's your chest. We used to do this exercise at festivals. So the first thing is who we are. Who are we? So, people, when they have these kind of identity crises, then other people say, "Oh, you're thinking too much. You hurt your brain." Don't do that. You'll just get depressed. Nobody knows. I remember someone said that to me. I said, just because you don't know doesn't mean to say nobody knows. Okay, you don't know, so that means nobody can know. If there's a question, there must be an answer. Why are we asking a question? If it was just as everything is as it is, and we were just bodies, then we would know that. We'd know that, but we wouldn't even think, there's something beyond that. And it's natural to ask these questions. That's what the human form of life is about. Consciousness is there in all the other species, but they don't have the ability to ask, who am I? Who am I? Why am I suffering the threefold miseries, and how can I be benefited? So this is Sanatana Goswami asking Lord Chaitanya, and he replies, Jivera Svurupahai Krishnera Nichidas Krishnera Tasta Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. Jivera Svurupahai, you're Jiva, and you're eternally related to Krishna as servant, part and parcel and servant. And Most of the living entities are still serving Krishna, but we've decided we want to try something different. But everybody else is happy, and you'll be happy if you go back. And everything is Krishna's energy. Everything's emanating from Krishna. But you're part of the ethereal energy, not of the ethereal energy. So when we understand that, we think, well, what is my relationship with this material world? So what is our relationship with this material world? Anybody?
Is it like an external relationship in the sense like, okay, just doing our terms, say, and not getting any entangled separately, and we work out what is my real destination and making my way towards that real destination?
Yeah. It's not a real home. It's a temporary relationship. It's not something we can depend on. It's always changing. Material energy is endlessly mutable. Just when you think you're getting comfortable and everything's looking good, then something changes. That's the only thing which is permanent in this material world is change. So therefore, and this is another mercy of Krishna, because therefore we can't become too attached to it. Just imagine if you're a demigod and you've lived for hundreds of thousands of years, you could be quite attached. You could become quite attached to that situation, where you're just enjoying life and you think, well, why not continue with this? But even from the topmost planet down to the bottom, then they're all places wherein repeated birth and death take place. So we can't find any shelter in this material world. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there's only two things of substance in this material world. Does anybody know what they are? In this material world, there's only two things which have any substance. Yeah, the jiva and the holy name. Everything else is a transient. It doesn't have any real substance. I thought you were going to say sweet rice and halava. Huh? But they're not of the material world. Well, and the only things which are of substance in this world is that which is not of the material world. The holy name has come to connect with the jiva so that they can be transported back to the spiritual world. This is actually the mode of transport back to the spiritual world, the holy name. Just imagine if you're waiting on a bus and call on the bus and it would be there as soon as you called on it. As soon as you call on Krishna's name, he's there, saying, okay, let's go back. All right, I just got a few things to sort out first. Just like this drama of Narada Muni and the dog. Yeah, so I think we all know that one, where Narada Muni says he visits Lord Narayan. Lord Narayan says, okay, whoever you see, you can invite them back to Godhead. And he sees this guy, Sailesh, and he says, Sailesh, I've just been to see Lord Narayan. And he said, you can come back to Godhead with me. He said, oh, let me just ask the wife. So he says, come back tomorrow. I'll ask the wife first, see what she says. She says, oh, well, can't quite go because we just get married and we're just about to have a son. We'll need to wait for the son to get born. Back in a year's time. Comes back a year's time. Well, actually, we need to get him through school first. And we need to get married. So he keeps on going and going. And then finally, he passes away. And Lord Vishnu says that your friend Sailesh has died and he's taking birth as a dog near the home, or in the home where he was actually living. Go and see if he wants to come back. So he goes to see him. Of course, Tolkien writes a certain script about this. And he says, Sailesh, where's Sailesh? And it's the dog barking. And he says, I'm not Sailesh any longer. I'm Lucky the dog. He says, well, how would you like to get really lucky and go back to Godhead? He says, well, I've got to be joking. I spent my whole life accumulating all this wealth. I'm not going to let it go unguarded. So he's become a guard dog. So, of course, there's different versions of this story. But this is the thing, is that our business in this material world is never done until we decide it's done. Material exhausted. And we have experienced being material exhausted, but then something, keep that little flame of desire or hope that we're still going to get something in this material world. Something fans that illusory spark. And Srila Prabhupada explains that sometimes Maya will give a living entity one desire or one thought, and that will keep them their whole life pursuing that illusion. It's just like the will o' the wisp. So the will o' the wisp, sometimes you see in marshy areas, you see some light, some kind of green phosphorus light or something, some chemical reaction. Sometimes people may think that it's some kind of supernatural thing and they go to chase it and hope to catch it. And they go into the boggy area and then get caught in the boggy area, and sometimes they might drown. Or chasing a mirage in the desert. Or if you're in the ocean, sometimes you see the illusion of land on the sea. So when people are desperate, then they see things which aren't really there. We're trying to enjoy. And then because of the harsh reality or the possibility of harsh reality, people don't want to, then they take to intoxication. So it means that they no longer have to actually see the harsh reality of life. So misguided by the blind leaders of society, people consider the body to be everything, and they are engaged in trying to keep the body materially comfortable. So the devotees, they know this, and they take on board voluntary austerities. The devotee understands that human life is meant for austerity. And the austerity which devotees do are not severe austerities, such as standing on the tip of your toes for thousands of years, or living in the forest and eating only dry leaves, etc. But the what's that? Can you hang on to it, or we maybe? Do you want to ask it just now? Okay. For the devotees, the austerities they perform are the prescribed activities which brings in Krishna consciousness. And basically, our main austerity is preaching, and everything we do is centered around this preaching movement. And there was an occasion where Prabhupada was sick, but he wanted to do so on one program, and Hari Sori Prabhu said to him, "Oh, Prabhupada, don't go, someone else can go." And he said, "No, I want to go." He said, "But Prabhupada, it's too austere." Prabhupada says, "Preaching means austerity." So Hari Sori Prabhu says that whenever Prabhupada had fixed his mind on something, then he couldn't change his mind otherwise. He would always find. But this is things like sometimes preaching isn't austere. You go to a program, kirtan's nice, prasadam is nice, nice talks, nice association, and other times it might not be so nice. Someone's playing the cartels out of time, somebody burnt the sweet rice, or you're too tired and you'd rather not go, or something else is on the mind. Activities might be okay, but you might not be appreciating it so much. But we do it anyway. And this is what Prabhupada says, that in the summertime, India, they go to cook in the kitchen and they don't think twice about it, even though it's very hot in the summer, and then the kitchen makes it even hotter. And in the winter time, even though it may be cold, then they still don't think twice but to take a bath every day. So this is called duty. And the form of discipline in Krishna consciousness, see, even in the material world, if you want to achieve something, there has to be some discipline. What to speak of if we're aiming for the highest goal, then some discipline must be there, regulation. And this way we're showing day by day that Krishna, we're still interested in you every day. We're chanting Krishna's names, we're hearing about Krishna, we're engaging in service. We're trying to remember Krishna. So the problem of life is janma mritu jara vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease, and forgetfulness of Krishna. This is what it's all caused by. But remembrance of Krishna is a solution to that. So when the educational institutions start to have a department where people can understand about spiritual education, then that's a really good step forward. And we'll continue to bring people in the universities on the streets, etc. But here's the wishes to you with the Buddha, and ask them souls, Prabhupada give him in particular directions. He suggests people get his boost textbooks in the education institutions. It is possible, yeah, it'll take about 40 years, but it's possible. So his enthusiasm was in the mode of goodness. He was planning for a lifetime of service, of building bridges to get these things in. And this is why he was also taking on the job of being a lecturer at Cambridge University to get credentials. Because in your CV, if you've got like PhD lecturer at Cambridge, then you're taken seriously. And it's interesting because the world is actually beginning to accept some of the kind of peripheral things like nowadays yoga is considered to be something that everybody does practically. Some of the vocabulary which is used, like mantra, karma, things like that, is becoming every day, whereas like 30, 40, 50 years ago, hardly anybody knew about these things, maybe a few hippies, scholars. So many of these things are becoming mainstream. So it's kind of an opportunity to converse about things which were previously before. Even vegetarianism, this kind of increase. Although I believe that there's many things which are degrading, at the same time, there's things which are improving, so this means polarization, of course, polarization is there. And this how you degenerates. Then some people think, well, okay, I might be bad, but I'm not that bad, I'm not going that far. So they'll be more on the good side. And as we continue to Hare Krishna, especially on the streets, it's purifying the atmosphere, then this is bringing auspiciousness into the planet. So even if people do not know what's good for them, or they're not interested in knowing what's good for them, or they refuse, etc., because the devotees are performing the highest welfare work, just like we're reading like to devotion there, that Krishna consciousness is all auspicious. It means by the devotees continuing with this responsible preaching work, then all the living entities are going to get benefited. And we're very fortunate because we get the credit for that, even though all we're doing is basically passing on a message. Just like sometimes the postman may come and he may deliver a check that you just won the lottery, and then out of enthusiasm, then the receiver of the check may give the postman a big hug and thank them very much for bringing it. Of course, probably in reality, he wouldn't even know the postman would be gone, but anyway, because we're delivering this message from the Supreme Lord, then he personally wants to give us that credit. And Prabhupada said that Lord Chaitanya could, inundate the whole world on his own, and he is through his devotees. But you're not limited to doing it through his devotees. As one devotee asked Prabhupada, will Lord Chaitanya spread this movement through his devotees? And Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya will spread his movement despite the devotees. So the choice is us. It's not that we should become proud thinking, well, Lord Chaitanya is depending on me. No. That's a false ego coming in there. We're depending on Lord Chaitanya's mercy, the service of the living Krishna consciousness to others. This is a great mercy on us. Just like that song of the broker, I will give you the name and I'll take my commission. So when you give something, usually you lose out of it, but the spiritual life, you give it, you get more. So people are simply wasting time and valuable gift of human form of life because human being who does not cultivate spiritual life dies like cats and dogs, and they're degraded in the next life. So this one loses the true benefit of human life, which is to become Krishna conscious and solve life's problems. So it's important for us to bear that in mind. Even though we may try to bring others to Krishna consciousness, at least the highest welfare is at least to do ourselves some good. We have to remain in Krishna consciousness ourselves. Because at the end of this life, then we're answerable for how we've spent this life. So regardless of what anyone else does, many people come and go, doesn't matter. We have to do we have to do what we have to do. And so there's a great boon having a human form of life, and it's a great loss if someone doesn't use it properly and they end up going back down to the lower species again. The Krishna conscious movement is so auspicious that when people get prasadam, they hear the whole name, they take a book, then they cannot conceive of how auspicious things are. They get another chance. These little things are still considered to be devotional service, so they get a chance again. Krishna is so kind, just like Putana came with the intention to kill Krishna, put poison on her breast, but Krishna took it as service. So Krishna is always keen to benedict the living entities. And this Krishna conscious movement is a prime benediction for humanity at large. So we just have to remain connected with this movement and do our genuine best to try to forward this movement and we'll attract the blessings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Guru Parampara. You had a question?
So as you were saying during the class that we see in mainstream these days, karma and yoga, mantras. So when we see that people talking about karma in their yoga classes and mantra chanting, they'll chant Om or they'll chant some Vedic mantras, but we never see them talking about Krishna or chanting holy names of Krishna. So why is that?
Yeah, they're very clever at avoiding that. Because Nirvisheshunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarni, generally the people that have any kind of spiritual or religious inclination, it's impersonal. Because the very religious institutions which have been prevalent in the Western world for many years have been founded on impersonalist concepts of God. Or sometimes people give up religion and think, well, I believe there must be something of energy, some homogeneous energy. So this is the best they can speculate up to. So it's when people are frustrated in material life, and sometimes due to so many bad relations, then There's a fear of having a personal relationship, and personal accountability to a Supreme Being can be a bit daunting. But this is, the devotees can utilize this. So they might be chanting Om, they might be doing some yoga. So the devotees will go along, they'll chant Om, and then they'll chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and then they'll chant Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai, and then everyone's getting into it, and then before you know it, they're all chanting Hare Krishna. And then, this Hare Krishna is the best. We have done this strategy for some time. I remember one time we did an 8-hour kirtan in a place called Findhorn. And so we've done a few hours of doing Hanuman Bolo, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Om Namo Narayan, this, that, so many things. Hey Govinda, Hey Gopal. And for the last couple of hours, the Maha Mantra. So by the time everybody had warmed up and they got into it, they were getting a taste, and they felt safe to chant with us. We brought the Maha Mantra on, and then there was no hesitation. There was one lady, she was just, eyes were streaming with tears. And afterwards, I seen her. I said, "You okay?" She says, "Yeah, sorry, I was crying so much." I says, "Why are you crying?" She said, "Well, she went to some retreat, which was actually an impersonalist Swami Yoga Club type retreat, where they told her the Maha Mantra is the greatest mantra." Funnily enough, they told her that. And she said it never really kind of made any difference to me, but she says, now, today, I experience just it is. So when people can get that experience, and we have to be clever to present it, and we don't, if we just all go in there with a second dhoti and we just fire Hare Krishna right into them from the beginning, some people have got a stigma, and then it's like, oh, it's Hare Krishna, so I'll forget it. So we have to be careful how we're cultivating different programs. Some programs you can do that, that's not a problem if you're advertising like that. If you're trying to cultivate people and bring them from they're very vague, interested in spiritual life to becoming a bit more focused on something substantial, then you have to gain trust. So, and then when you gain the trust, and then with that trust, they gain experience to think, wow, this is great. I thought it was all about this, but the Maha Mantra is the real thing. So that's what we have to do. We have to become expert at presenting this. Not that we're just doing this because we're not got much faith in the holy name ourselves, or because we're too attached and we want to do it a certain way. There's strategy involved in it. Yes, and another question?
You were mentioning in the beginning, Prabhu, that we're all servants of Krishna. That is our constitution of our soul, Jivara Swarupa Krishna and Nityadas. Now, if we try to understand that means Krishna is our master and we must follow his orders. But how do we understand? How do we call Krishna and ask, what do you want from me, Krishna?
Yeah. So the spiritual master is known as the external manifestation of the Lord within the heart. The Lord is with us all the time, but sometimes we might not know what the Lord wants. If we're foolish, we might just speculate, oh, I believe what's in my heart, but there's so many things in our heart which aren't correct. So many dirty things in our heart. That's a bit risky. So if what is in our heart aligns with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then that's okay. But if it doesn't, then that's speculative and that can be disastrous. So it's not a sentimental thing, it's a practical thing, being a devotee. Prabhupada says that devotion must be demonstrated. It's not just a feeling. There may be some feeling of devotion there, but if the feeling of devotion is there, but it's not backed up by some demonstration of it, then it's simply sentiment, isn't it? And that doesn't take us anywhere. At the same time, simply mechanically doing it is limited as well. But better to do something with Krishna, even if we're not fully conscious of it, but we have some faith in Krishna. It was like many people had so much faith in Srila Prabhupada, they didn't really have maybe so much Krishna consciousness themselves or understanding, but they had understanding that they had great faith in Prabhupada, so whatever he said, they would do it. So to understand what we want, what Krishna wants of us, then you can read Bhagavad Gita, and we'll get the principles of how Krishna wants us to act. And to see more specifically what Krishna wants from us, then that's also depending on what we're prepared to give to Krishna. And the association of devotees can help with that, and particularly the spiritual master can help with that. But we also have to see what do we want to give to Krishna in this life, and how do we want to give it. So if we're considering ashram, then ashram is one thing, but whether one is in one ashram or another, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that you have to be a devotee or not a devotee. We can still focus our life on being a devotee. And endeavour to be Krishna conscious all the time. If we're regularly in touch with Krishna consciousness, then we will start to see the world in relation to Krishna, whatever position we're in. Is that okay? Anything else? Okay, we'll just finish there then, if there's nothing else.
One point. How to, like, hearing this, I think it ties in with nectar of devotion, what you read in this verse as well. It feels like that this Krishna consciousness is the highest welfare activity. Now, someone in the streets, say, of Glasgow may not understand what we are up to, our philosophy and all. But within devotee community, by and large, we all understand. So how to have a very good, loving relationship with devotees, understanding that we are in the same movement and doing the highest welfare activities.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And it's not that we'll get on with everybody perfectly, because some people by nature, if we don't have that common denominator of Krishna consciousness and following authority, then there can be so many difficulties. And Maya can get in. So when Maya gets in between the devotees, then unless they can accept it's Maya, and we should put that aside and go on and serve together, then there may be some difficult relationship. But even if there's difficulty there, then Prabhupada did say that this is your austerity. There was two devotees who had difficulty working, and Prabhupada said that this is your austerity. So for some reason, Prabhupada wanted those two to particularly work together because he wanted them to achieve something for spreading the mission. And at the same time, you can pick your friends in Krishna consciousness. I remember Guru Das talking about, well, he was passing on from Kadambakana Maharaj that human beings are kind of tribal, and they all kind of congregate in their own tribes. So certain tribes just they won't go on with others. Some tribes are the good neighbours with other tribes. And you'll find that as a temple gets bigger and bigger, then you'll see tribes emerging from that. But we should always try to, even if we don't go on with other people, we should always try to see and appreciate that this person is a rare person. They're trying to be a devotee in Kali Yuga in the material world, regardless of whatever faults they have, or regardless of how we don't go on well with them. We have to see that they're trying to be a devotee and appreciate service that they do or service that they've done. At the same time, there may be certain types of devotees we want to avoid association because they may not be a good influence. Sometimes people advance in Krishna consciousness and then they may decide to, at some point, they don't want to surrender any longer. But we still think that we're moving forward. The Krishna consciousness is an uphill climb. It's like going up the escalator, which is going down. If you stop on it, then you start to go back again. So we have to be careful to choose our association as well. Make sure as that Sangha Tyag that we're not taking any type of association which is going to impede our Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said that there's no such thing as utopia, even in the spiritual world. And that's why tolerance has to be there. And we have to also appreciate that just as we're an individual, others are individuals, and they've got a right to make their own choices. They may have their own version or understanding of Krishna consciousness. Just like certain disciples are gravitate towards a certain type of guru, but they might not be interested in hearing from another one. Whereas other people flock to that one, so it doesn't mean to say right or wrong. Sometimes it could be, even in the in Great Souls, it mentions that I think it's in the 12th canto, that in Kali Yuga, even the Paramahamsas are bewildered what to do in Kali Yuga, what to speak of the ordinary living entities. So we can expect confusion, quarrel, hypocrisy. We can expect it in Kali Yuga. But we must do our best to not be part of that ourselves. I don't know if that answers your question. Anything else? Iskon Guru Vinda Ki, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Prabhupada Prana Prabhu ki